Hello, good morning. It's just gone 10 AM on Thursday the 30th of April. Last day of April today. A change of plan from what I said on my last video. I'm hoping to see some bluebells today, but on the Mendips, not in Michael Wood. I went there on Monday to try and film a video and it all went wrong. I'll explain that en route. So I'm back on Ham Wood Viaducts on the Windsor Hill Greenway. So I'm going to go along that way, kind of retrace what I did last week. This is going to be a part 2. So instead of heading back up over East Mendip, the way I did last week, I had that track to that antenna, I'm going to go along a bit further and go up to the highest point on the Fossway, Beacon Hill. I believe there's some bluebells through there as well. And I can show you an old Roman crossroads. I showed you it on a map last week. I can actually show you it on a tarmac on the road. And also, before we get there, I'm going to just detour slightly down into Shepton Mallet and tell you what I hope is a really fascinating story. And I've got some press clippings to back my claims up. Last week, I tried to film walking down here, and when I looked at the footage, it was all facing down. The reason being is that there's bluebells down here. And they are a protected species. You must not damage them or pick them. It's actually an offence. So I was so careful while I was treading. All the footage was facing at the ground. But I did just want to show you how spectacular this is. Just briefly, it's well worth locking your bike up here and taking a walk down. Lovely bench there. And then you can see all the bluebells down through the wood. I was actually hoping to get right down there. There used to be a footpath there, but it looks like it's been blocked off, and I can kind of understand why. But this is what I tried to film last week, and then I wasn't able to show you. Sturdy footwear, I would suggest, but it's definitely walkable in cycling shoes. So just a few yards along there's the path going down underneath. This is the view from above, looking down at the spectacular Ham Wood. I'm going to go through Windsor Hill tunnels. I'll speak to you again at that bridge abutment where the course of this greenway crosses that minor road. And I made a mistake last week. I'll explain what that is and I'll put it right this week. So think of this as part 2 from last week. If you're unfamiliar with the story so far, it's the video below this one. Last week I rode along as far as this greenway goes at the moment to those steel gates at the entrance to Bath Road Viaduct. But today, before we go up to the Fossway and the Bluebell Woods hopefully, I'm going to just detour down slightly and show you a view from underneath Bath Road Viaduct, which would be similar to being down there but in a residential setting and looking up. And I'll tell you quite an amazing story, and I'll show you a few press clippings. I've put my camera with the wind muff on my chest mount. It's a bit heavier, so hopefully it's not sloping forward. I've tried to modify the bracket so it's giving you more of the view that I'm seeing, not just the front tyre and the tarmac. So as you can see, as you leave the viaduct, you go through this little ledge, wooded. Before long we'll come round a bend and there'll be the Windsor Hill tunnel. The wind's very strong, so I'm not sure how much is coming out on this camera. I have got one of those foam wind slayers over my camera. It's like a little foam glove, which hopefully will reduce most of the wind noise. And here we are, Windsor Hill tunnel. As I said last week, the other one is alongside, just there, longer, more of a curve in it, but blocked to the public. You've got a sign over it, Windsor Hill tunnel. I don't know if those light up at night or they're just reflectors, but they're quite effective. Gosh, it's like, really is like a wind tunnel coming through here. There you can see metal sign there, Windsor Hill, and you cannot see the road from here, but it's just literally past those trees. And for many years I'd ride over here because this was closed to the public, and you'd see a lot of cars, and I got asked a few times did I know where Windsor Hill Tunnel was. And for many years I didn't actually. Then I took the trouble to walk down here and find it, and then I was able to guide people down. But now it's part of this greenway. So I hope you can see it's not that far from the viaduct to the tunnel, and now it's not far from the tunnel portal to the lane we're going to get on. That's where that bridge abutment was last week. I think I called it a parapet. I always get those two words. Of course, the greenway bends here and it slopes down to cross a minor road, because although the abutment for the bridge is still here, the bridge has disappeared many years ago. So I'm guessing it was cheaper and safer to put these ramps in rather than try and reinstate a bridge across there. But that's the course of the railway there. Then, as I showed you last week, you go up there and you carry along to Bath Road Viaduct. Although the gates are up, there's no access at the moment. We're going to go up here like we did last week, but instead of turning left to go back up over the Mendips as we did at that track to the aerial, we're going to turn right briefly, go down and have a look at Bath Road Viaduct from underneath, and then we'll retrace back up and cross the very, very busy A37 as we head up towards the Fossway. So last week I referred to this as bridge number 38. When I looked at the footage I thought, is that really a 3? It's quite faded. And then I read up about Bath Road Viaduct and it says it's S&D structure 81. And I thought, that's 78, isn't it? Because when we went that way, we went over an old bridge, 79, and then it looked like there was the abutments of an overbridge that we would have gone under, which would make the viaduct 81. And the distance to Windsor Hill Tunnel from Bath is 18.5 miles, so I'm guessing here 19. 78 structures, man-made structures, from Bath just to here. That includes tunnels, bridges, viaducts, some of them very, very substantial. You can see why it would have bankrupted the original company, but when it was taken over and amalgamated, it was actually quite profitable, and I'll tell you the story down there. So let's head up to this T-junction. So before we cross over the A37 to Fossway, we're actually going to turn right and drop down into Shepton Mallet briefly. So I rode out on Monday up to Michael Wood, and I was going to film the bluebells, and I did a good half of a video, just come over the brow of the hill, and was going to say, look, aren't these spectacular? And they weren't out. And I thought, what? There was a carpet of white and it's wild garlic. And then I thought, have I got the timing wrong? Now I quickly looked it up and it says bluebells are most spectacular in the period of the last week of April, first week of May. So they are usually spectacular up there at Michael Wood. I don't know what's happened, whether the white of the garlic is just covering them slightly and they will reappear in a few weeks' time, or maybe just the garlic has become the invasive species. I just don't know is the answer. So I will go back to Michael Wood in a few weeks' time and see what's up. That's the lane we've just come up to, this T-junction, and last week we carried on that way, then bared round to the right and then the left. But today, going to head down here, just into the outskirts of Shepton Mallet, to have a look at the really, really impressive Bath Road Viaduct. So the railway is now on our right hand side. You will get glimpses of it, occasionally. So here really is the outskirts of Shepton Mallet. What a wonderful way to get into the town. There's a gateway along here I'll just stop at, show you something. So we're now a few hundred yards to the left of the railway. There's Corsefit going along there. Can you see that brick bridge there? Last week I said, oh, that must be bridge number 39. Well, it's not, it's 79. And then I did say it looked like there used to be an overbridge. That would be 80. And then, as I understand it, Bath Road Viaduct will be S&D number 81. So that all makes sense. So we're going to go along here, drop down briefly on a semi-busy road, and then you'll get fantastic views. The viaduct will just suddenly appear. So I'm going to retrace back up here shortly, but I just still want to do this dog leg down there. It really is well worth sharing with you. That's not the A37, that's a B road, although it's busy enough. I had many happy picnics on that seat there. So this is Windsor Hill Lane. We're going to retrace back up here. And this is Bath Road, which we join in. And as you come round this corner, the railway will just appear in front of you and above you, very, very spectacularly. Here it comes. Just think, one day we'll be able to ride over that. I'm just going to pull into a little minor road down here and tell you the story of Bath Road Viaduct. I'm not sure if you can read that because it's partially in shadow, but there's a plaque there saying Somerset and Dorset Joint Railway, Bath Road Viaduct, reconstructed February to July 1946. Name of the engineer and the contractors. When I took you to as far as Little Garden Greenway last week, to that metal fence, it would have been that way, towards Windsor Hill Tunnel. It just looked like not much more than a bridge, didn't it? But this is a fairly substantial structure. It's the highest viaduct on the old railway, not the longest, the highest. And do you remember me telling you the extension that was built between Evercreeks Junction, south of Shepton Mallet and Bath in the 1870s bankrupted the original company, and then it was taken over by the Southern and the Midland Railways, and they made it profitable. And about 20 years later they began to double the line. They did it in sections, and this section was done in the 1890s, I believe. And there's the original viaduct, a good old Mendip Bath stone. That reinforcing plate there is part of the story. And then they just literally built another bridge or viaduct alongside it of engineering brick. I suppose the technology had improved in the meantime. And they're literally just two bridges joined together. And you'll see that all the way along this section between Bath and Shepton Mallet. You'll quite often get the stone and the brick, and they were stitched together. So the story concerning that is, so I'm going to read to you from the Forgotten Relics website. I'll put the link to their homepage in the description below. It says, on the morning of Friday the 1st of February, this is 1946, the middle pier of the new section gave way, taking with it the arches on either side. Fortunately, no trains were crossing and no road traffic was passing underneath. Nearby houses were unaffected, but by the following day, trains were running again across the viaduct with a single line slewed across both the remaining parapet and temporary speed restriction imposed. I'm going to show you a couple of press clippings from the time. that kind of underplays the damage. It's almost like something out of Indiana Jones. You get the original structure and then the new structure literally just disappeared, and the railway's hanging mid-air, as this news article from the time demonstrates. And apologies for the road noise, but I wanted to tell you this story in situ so you can get an idea. Look, there it is. That photograph was taken from just down there, and there's two arches just disappeared, and there's a track hanging in mid-air. Can you imagine that out there? About 65 feet up in the air, I believe. Here is another article from March the 1st, 1946, so almost a month later. The writing is quite blurred, but what it's telling you is that the track had to be removed and it was dynamited. I mean, these days they would probably use a flame cutter, wouldn't they, or kind of a massive angle grinder, but in those days they dynamited it. So there's the sappers planting the charges, and there's a rather blurry photograph with the two explosions. So that track that was hanging in the air, they just dynamited it and it fell down. Can you imagine that these days in our risk society, where we've been programmed to be scared of everything, everything's a crisis? I don't think that would happen these days. And it carried on from August of 1946, 80 years ago, to 1966. It carried on working for another 20 years before closing in 1966. I just find this a remarkable story. So when I cycled along that rough gravel track, which is still a footpath or bridleway I believe last week, I went all the way along to those steel gates at the start of the viaduct. When you look at it from that level, it doesn't particularly look that impressive, does it? So only when you get down there you realise what a remarkable structure that is. 7 arches, and it's the highest one on the whole line. So one day, hopefully, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be able to ride across that. I don't know what the latest news is regarding the legal case, or even if it is a legal case. I'm not going to speculate on things I don't know. I've tried to research and get an update, but I cannot find anything. What I have found is the project booklet, which again you can download or read online. I'll put links to that in the description below, but they clearly do plan to run along here. Plan is, I believe, to go across here all the way through Shepton Mallet to the Charlton Road Viaduct, which is longer than this, 27 arches on a curve that would have taken you into the old Shepton Mallet station. Both that and this are grade 2 listed structures, and by all accounts the owners of this National Highway spent about £300,000 about 10 years ago strengthening this and making it safe. So hopefully one day, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be riding across that. So now what we're going to do is just go back a few hundred yards. I'm probably going to pavement it up here, get back onto Windsor Hill Lane, go up where this road intersects and joins the A37, then we're going to go right across. It is quite a busy junction. I'll give you an idea of how busy it is when we get there, and then we'll start climbing up over East Mendip towards the highest point on the Fossway. From the highest viaduct on the Somerset and Dorset Railway to the highest point on the Fossway, the Roman road that ran all the way from Exeter in Devon to Lincoln in Lincolnshire. And here we are, back at Windsor Hill Lane. Within yards, it's lovely. It just goes from residential and busy to just feeling like you're out in the middle of the countryside, in between little hamlets and villages. So that's the way we came down, and that line up there, that's Windsor Hill. And as I said, the railway came through it, and there it is at the end of this buttercup field, and there's a bridge. We're going to turn right here and we're going to turn right here into Back Lane and cross two quite busy roads straight into the wind. And can you see The B road is about to cross the A37 and we want to get straight across both, which requires great care. Okay, that's the Bath road we've just crossed, the one that goes down underneath the viaduct, and here's the A37. And you wait for a quiet bit. It's quite hilly that way, so any lorries will form a queue of traffic behind it. And now we're climbing up towards the Fossway. Can you see why I like it so much around Shepton Mallet? It's got a bit of a deprived and run down reputation, but as I said, I think it's got so much potential. But it's like Bath, I think the jewel in its crown is the surrounding countryside. We're literally less than a mile from that busy road junction I showed you. And that's looking up towards the Mendip Ridge. And I probably need to point it out, but right in front of us is the top of that aerial mast where I spoke to you last week. I finished the video there. Do you remember me saying, you see those woods over there? That's the highest point of the Fossway. Well, that's Beacon Hill Woods. The Fossway is going to be coming in from our right, and then we're going to turn left and go right up through those. Hopefully see some good displays of bluebells. And if not, I'm not quite sure what's happening this year. Big solar farm that side. See it south facing. Just gorgeous, isn't it? We're less than a mile from Shepton Mallet, and in the very far hazy distance you can see, what would that be, the Quantock Hills, I think. Black Downs or the Quantocks, it's all down that way. Fantastic scenery. Just look how lovely this is. So I know some people will question me when I say I think Shepton Mallet's got as much potential for enjoyment as Wells. You sort of, well, Wells has got its cathedral and the palace and the moat and everything, its historic buildings, but this has got countryside. It's got 2 Grade 2 listed viaducts, Kilver Court Gardens. Just get off your bike and wander through the town along the Sheppey. There's the old Babysham factory, which is now a cider factory. You've still got the old Babysham deer there you can go and see. There's so much history just all around the river. It's just, I really like Shepton Mallet. What's always put me off going there is it's quite difficult to get to on a bike. Unless you want to drive down there, just down the A37, then it just feels like any other town. But when you get there on a bike, it just got that magic for me anyway. And I think that greenway, when it's fully open, is just going to completely change people's perceptions of it. I hope so, for the better. Just along a bit further, it's so lovely up here. There's the transmitter right in front of us. I spoke to you at the end of last week's video. Wind turbine down a little bit, down that hill. And there's the woods in front of us. Beacon Hill Woods. So the Fossway will be approaching soon. It'll intersect this road and then almost leave it immediately on an S-bend. And then it'll be a footpath up through those woods. Before we know it, we're crossing the Fossway. So I've just come along this way about a mile from the A37. Here's the Fossway coming up. That's climbed up steeply out of Shepton Mallet, and it gets this little contour here. It will actually go straight across the road here, through some fields, and then it'll climb up steeply through the woods. So we're going to go along where that blue car is, round to the left, and then we'll turn off on a similar track up through the woods, and we'll be crossing it very shortly on this bend. Here. So after about 100 yards or so on this curve on this road, this is the Fossway coming across us up there. So I showed you it appearing back there. the other side of those trees. It just climbed up steeply out of Shepton mallet, levels a little bit here on this contour, would have come across this field, crosses this road, and very shortly it will start climbing really steeply up to Beacon Hill Woods, the highest point of the Fossway. This is classified as a restricted byway. So it's a byway that can be closed at the owner's discretion, maybe for lambing or things like that. So ride along here with caution. I think just common sense, common courtesy. If anybody's walking along, just get off and push. This is a 2,000-year-old road. The longest, straightest road in Britain, I think. I read somewhere between Ilchester and Lincoln, however many miles that is, the Fossway is the longest straight road in the UK. It never deviates more than about 6 miles from being a straight line. There's a tree down here by the look of it. Yep. Get up and push around it. Gosh, I wonder if this is the old agger that's sloped down to allow water to run off. It feels raised here. And by the way, you probably guessed, but the Romans didn't call it the Fossway. It's only been called that retrospectively. In fact, nobody's really sure, even expert researchers, how they catalogued their roads. Did they number them? I'm sure they did. But how they catalogued them, did they name them, number them, group them in any way, categorise them, we just simply do not know. For long-term viewers of this channel, you'll remember my first cycle tour after the final lockdown of COVID. I rode the entire length of the Fossway as close as I could possibly make it, from Exeter to Lincoln, dressed as a Roman centurion. You imagine I got lots of comments, lots of beeping as vans went by, people coming up asking to have their photographs taken with me. I kind of realise I'm a bit of a closet exhibitionist, I think, but I've got a lovely picture of me near the summit of here that the guy at the car park for the Woodland Trust, I think, just said to me, "Can I have my photograph taken with you?" So I said, yeah, and I think it's him that took that. Oh look, started to come across some bluebells. As I said, they're a protected species and it is an offence to pick them or damage them in any way. So I really am being careful where I walk and ride. Gosh, a lot of trees down along here. Either side of the Fossway, the Blue Way. And the reason I know there's probably going to be a good display of bluebells when we get into the woods is when I rode the Fossway that time, June of whatever year it was, dressed as a Roman centurion. I remember saying here, oh, that looks like there was some clusters of bluebells here a few months back, and one of my subscribers come on and said yes, they're stunning. And look, I think we're about to see for ourselves. Oh yes, lots of them. Footpath through there. Pretty sure there's a seat here somewhere, if I remember from a previous visit. Should be a good place to stop and have a picnic and a wander around. Bluebell Woods. Oh, this is gorgeous. And the Fossway is about to literally climb almost like up a wall here. if you try and follow the course of it exactly, you won't be able to ride it. How's this for a lunch stop, ladies and gentlemen? It's going to be my lunch stop. There's a tree stump here with a commemoration plaque on it. Says, part of the surrounding area is dedicated in memory of Catherine Pegler, 1957 to 2015. Well loved and not forgotten, the Woodland Trust. Okay, see if we can film some of these lovely clusters of bluebells. Oh, they are quite spectacular. Carpets of them down there. Again, very careful when treading. I don't want to damage a single one. There's some in the shade here. Just got the page up on the Woodland Trust for Beacon Hill, so I'll read it to you. It says the key features of Beacon Hill Wood, Somerset. Location: situated on a high ridge on the eastern end of the Mendip Hills. Archaeology: features multiple Bronze Age burial mounds barrows, including a site of a former beacon. Nature: carpeted with bluebells in the spring and dominated by Scots pine and beech. Oh, here it's absolutely lovely. The shade blocks out the harsh UV of the sun, and the bluebells look absolutely fantastic here. Now, I think the course of the Fossway would have gone straight up that way. When I tried to replicate it as close as possible, dressed as a Roman centurion, that's the way I went. And gosh, it's so steep, it's unbelievable. You can see all these, what looks like ancient mileposts. I think they're just modern markers to suggest the best way to get up here. So, we're heading up that summit, but we're going to curl around this way. Can you see the GPS is bending us round? So there's plenty of ways to get up there. But today I'm going to opt for the easier route. Just enjoy these lovely bluebells in what's quite a strong wind. The original course of the Fossway crossed the Mendips up here, The modern day A37 follows the course of the Fossway in places, but then it curls round through Shepton Mallet. Although that's fairly steep in places and it's very, very busy, as I've referred to quite a few times already, it curls around the side of this hill, and then the two will intersect later over that way. So the A37 is steep enough if you've ever driven up that, but this is seriously steep. It's only when I rode the Fossway I really appreciated just how arduous the journey would have been, and what an engineering marvel it was to have constructed a road that long and that straight. And I think the straightness kind of fools your brain into thinking, oh, it must be flat. If it looks straight, it must be flat. Believe me, Roman roads are anything from flat. They're so hard to ride, and this is just a perfect example. And this is just one of many hills. It's like a roller coaster, up and down, up and down, up and down. I would say between just south of Shepton Mallet, Canard's Grave, and just north of the M4 at the Jib, that section of the Fossway is just absolutely brutally hard. It's not particularly long, but it's just up and down, up and down, up and down, which really took its toll on me. Luckily my house was dead in the middle, so I was able to spend the night there and recuperate. I'm going to start cycling in a minute towards the exit stroke entrance, but it's round about here somewhere I did my first ever hot tent camp with a wood burner in it. Got a titanium wood burner, and I set my tent up here somewhere, but I remember it's quite close to a Bronze Age barrow which was somewhere along here. I made sure I was well away from that, and there was this fantastic sunset over Shepton Mallet. The whole wood where I was kind of lit up orange and pinky and red. Fantastic sunset, clear sunset, and I was really surprised just how warm hot tent camping was. I'd been led to believe it was, but until I experienced it, it kind of blew me away really. Camping, being too hot in December, having to strip off layers and being shirt sleeves. Then anyway, I went to bed and I woke up in the night, I don't know what time it was, a little bit unsettled, and I heard this noise which sounded like some scraping down the edge of the tent, because it's a teepee style tent, wigwam. And it had been snowing, and the snow had settled on the tent, and then it was sliding down. I opened up the zip, and it was just like being in the middle of a cloud. There was just, you could hardly see the next tree. It's thick mist. So good memories from here. But you know, when you wake up in a strange place, you don't quite remember where you are for a minute or so. Especially strange noise. It sounded like some sort of creature was scraping its claws down the edge of my tent. But look at this. It's Glastonbury Tor in the far distance. Very distinctive round lump. The little church tower at the top of it. And then there's the A37 along there. You may hear it. You can see a few vehicles going along. So the A37 actually parallels the course of the old Fossway south to Shepton Mallet. Then it curls around and comes up the side of the hill. Even that's steep in places, but it avoids this coming straight up through these woods. But in effect, that road there, the one we've been trying to avoid, the busy A37, is pretty much doing the same thing as the Fossway's climbing up over East Mendip. We're actually heading up to the Roman Road, Margaret's 45B, which ran from Old Sarum near Salisbury up onto the Mendips near Chartres, when there were lead mines, hence its name of the Lead Road. Some people refer to it as. Ivan Margary, the historian who catalogued and indexed old Roman roads, calls it 45B. We're just about to reach it. You may hear some traffic. We're approaching. That would be traffic actually on the Lead Road, the old Roman Lead Road. So the Fossway is over there, 100 yards or so. We'll go and find it. Oh yeah. Look at that. Beacon Hill. So this B road, this is Margaret's 45B, is just crossed over the A37 behind me. We've avoided that quite nicely. And then along here, opposite that fence, is a Roman crossroads. Go and have a look. So this is the old lead road, the 2,000-year-old Roman lead road. Margaret refers to it as 45B. So it ran from Old Sarum on the outskirts of Salisbury, many miles that way, along here to Charterhouse up on West Mendip, where there were some lead mines. Some people believe it carried on down to Bristol Channel, but not everybody agrees on that. You can see it's very straight here. And this is the Fossway. If we'd carried on the true course of the Fossway, we'd have pretty much come that way. A couple of ladies have just walked it. I chose to push my bike that way because I just know how hard and how steep that is, pushing up the bike from previous experience. So here we are, the Roman crossroads, and it carries on that way. So the Fossway from Exeter passed through Shepton Mallet, and it crosses Margaret's 45B here and carries on down towards Oak Hill. Those two ladies are walking it. It's easy to say, I wonder how many motorists come along here and don't even realise the significance of this old Roman crossroads. But I didn't know about this until several years back, so I've ridden by many times and not known it. It's hardly surprising. It's not as though there's a gift shop or anything, is there? So Roman crossroads, the map version and the corresponding road version. We're going to carry on down that way towards Oak Hill. So from the crossroads over Margaret's 45B, and we're going to continue dropping down off the Mendips here, down this track. This will take us down towards Oak Hill. Need to be careful along here because it's quite steep, quite rocky in places. So again, riding it cautiously. Rutted it is along here. Some fairly big stones sticking up. But again, four-wheel drives get down here. Just down here, the Fossway would carry straight on across a field, but this track will bend round and do an S-bend because it drops very, very steeply. So this track eases that gradient somewhat. We'll get some good views across there, looking over Stratton on the Foss. Wow, the bluebells down here are fantastic. See what I mean? Just opens up, and right in front of us, obscured by trees slightly, there's a tower of Downside Abbey, Stratton on the Foss. So line of sight, because the Fossway rides right back by that. Oh, look at that lovely view. So Romans travelling 2,000 years ago along this route would have come up through those woods. Whether this was open then, I do not know, but if it was, that's the view they'd be looking at. See the hills in the far distance, it's probably north of Bath. You can see Westbury White Horse over there, just a little white blob in the distance. And we're going to go along here, go down. There's a road that runs alongside here, and I'm going to snake along there, get on the Two Tunnels Greenway at Radstock and ride into Bath that way. I think I've finished the video here because what a lovely view. Well, I had said my next video would be the bluebells at Michael Wood, north of Bristol, but that didn't work out, as I explained. They're just not there at the moment. I will try again in a few weeks' time. But I hope coming out here and showing you this route and some places of interest is made up for that. I will try Michaelwood again in a few weeks' time, because it is superb up there, and there's a really interesting route following a river, and there's a story behind that I'd like to share with you. And hopefully we'll see the bluebells there. Maybe get a second view of the bluebells in a few weeks' time. So from the highest point of the Fossway back there on the Roman crossroads, hope you've enjoyed coming along and sharing this lovely route with me and some of the points of interest. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye for now. A little bonus material. This is the Five Arches Greenway. It runs along the course of the old Somerset and Dorset Railway from Midsummer Norton up there. I've just ridden past this station. It's reopened as a heritage line, and it comes down here, and actually the track bed goes up over there. You may hear we're about to cross the main road there. That was an embankment, and the Five Arches was a viaduct which took it across the main road, the River Somer, and also the railway from Bristol to Frome, which we're going to join shortly actually, because that's a cycleway now. So this is where the Fossway crossed it. The good old Fossway, another crossroads. Can you see? We are here. So the Fossway was coming through Westfield that way. The main road goes that way, and the Roman road goes down a back street, dead end, then comes down through these woods. That literally is the Fossway, ladies and gentlemen. And then we're just going to follow it down here, across this main road, and I'll show you where it crosses another railway. So 3 Fossway crossroads in one video. So the course of the railway would have been up there. They demolished the bridge going across the main road just to give better visibility to the increase in traffic. I think that was in the 80s or the 90s. We can ride along here. We're still pretty much following the course of the Fossway. Crossing a little stream there. I think that's the Somer. Still following the Fossway. That's this little trading estate. Up past behind these council offices, little estates. And this link track, the Fossway, actually is going to bring us out on the course of the old Bristol to Frome Railway, GWR. This was the railway from Bristol that way. It's going to run alongside the Somerset and Dorset Railway as it passes through Radstock, and that's the course of the Fossway up there, ladies and gentlemen. Believe me, it's a really tough road to ride. That's the Fossway up there. As I said, it's up and down, up and down, up and down, like a roller coaster. There's still a few more after that. Just one last point of interest. Occasionally you'll see pictures on Facebook or on the internet, and it shows you a cross section. It's a black and white photograph. It will show you a cross section of the Fossway near Radstock. And Paul Whitewick, who's got a YouTube channel, he's an amateur historian, that picture bugged him and he wanted to know where in Radstock it was. So he got some help and they traced it to just up over there. So if you ever see that picture, I think it's an archaeological excavation. It's got all the different layers of the Fossway. It says at Radstock, but it means near Radstock. Just up there behind those hedges. Then after that it drops down steeply, up, down, up, before it drops down into Bath. Believe me, this is a really hard road to ride. Anyway, this really is the finish of the video now. I'm going to head into Bath that way.